All right, we're streaming.
And recording.
All right. Hold on one second. We do need to get.
We will.
All right. Cool. All right, we are streaming and we're recording. This is interesting. Still trying to figure out this whole system.
What?
Somehow be so good you can't be ignored gets in.
Oh, nice.
Oh, nice.
Is there a square on my face?
There is.
Damn it. We can't get that out. Do I need to move left or right?
I think you're good. You're
We
good.
both good.
Yeah. You're both good. All right.
Can
So-
people be square on your face?
No.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
What do you mean a square? Like
it's
it's
square.
focusing on you?
It's whatever you see on there is what they see.
Oh.
Yeah, so we got to get rid of that thing.
I don't know how to get rid of it. Is it still on my face? Like
Is
where?
it just on you?
It's still
It's bouncing.
it's whoever's speaking, I think.
Oh,
We speak a little bit. Dre?
Hello? Hello?
No, actually, it's not Andreas.
Testing? It's just...
It's my face.
Molly.
Small.
Okay.
It's me. do I need to move?
You're the center of this angle.
I could be a square today. I'm okay with that.
Got it. Okay. So the topic today. The
What?
topic today.
First.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, topic.
Give it to me straight.
Yeah.
I don't know why I can't.
Really?
I actually can't hear him either.
You can't hear me?
Put his a little bit louder.
Wait. Speak.
It gets any closer and it starts to get awkward.
No, I
You
think
know what
it's-
mean? Like it's different situation.
Oh, I could do it
Oh, I
again.
think.
Am I good now?
No.
I mean, I can hear my.
Oh, there it is.
oh, there
I can
it
hear
is.
you. Yeah.
Who is our tech guy? Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
I mean, we can shout out someone else too.
So the topic of the day is what is an attractive quality in a leader?
Oh,
What is the
That's a
most
good one.
attractive quality in a leader? So I'm gonna pull up my poll that I did. People are getting annoyed at doing polls, but
I love that you're doing polls. You're gonna learn what the great people want.
what is the most attractive quality in a leader? I wrote nicety is the first one, hard
Jesus.
work second one,
Mhm.
empathy
Hmm.
third, confidence fourth. We don't have to be restricted to just these qualities.
I would guess based on the four that you picked in the current season of life we're in, empathy probably
Empathy,
won
yeah.
by a
hmm
pretty good margin,
Absolutely.
followed by probably confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, nicety was at the very bottom.
Nice.
That's like politeness, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Politeness. Okay. Yeah. So 2% said nicety.
Thank you. That's good.
Out of how many people?
So 360 people voted.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I can hear myself.
And then hard work was 13%, and then
Sure.
61% was empathy, and then 24% was confidence.
We don't care about our leaders working hard.
As long as they are nice to you.
No, actually,
long as
this
they're
poll
nice.
shows that people care more about empathy than you working hard.
Yeah.
So
In a leader.
what does that say?
This is in a leader. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's
That makes
awesome.
sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Because as a person that is being guided, empathy shows a lot of that care, right? Like you don't know. People don't care how much you know.
Until they know how much you care.
One of our
Exactly.
organizing principles.
Exactly. So that makes a lot of sense to me.
Mhm. Got it. Well, we don't have to be restricted to these qualities alone. I mean, like, what is like a leader in your life? What have you seen as an attractive? Like, I want to follow this person because of that.
I would say really quick though, we should talk about empathy because this is an important one. It's also very trendy right now, but it is important, and I think we do need. More leadership, empathy and leadership,
Okay.
and I think there's a call for it. And I think developing, especially because so much of leadership for the longest time is almost the opposite of empathy. I think you see the response. I mean, I'm not surprised by that. I'm not surprised that you're seeing a lot of people say, "Hey, like empathy is really important and important right now." So that's a good one. Statistically, the most sought after leadership trait always shocks people, but it's actually predictability by a massive margin, more than integrity, more than honesty, clearly more than hard work. And so that's an interesting one to unpack why that may be. but predictability shows up in a lot of ways, and it explains some of the things we've seen in recent history, even the election, the last one. I think, Trump turned out to not be a very great leader at all, by my estimation. No offense to people who loved him, but he was elected despite the fact that the Democrats hated him, the Republicans hated him, and the media hated him. And I would chalk that up to what he was, and what the people loved about him was he was highly predictable. He did not move from his position at all. He was like arrogantly connected to it. Whatever he said he was going to do, he stayed on that. He didn't change his position. And I think that worked for him. He obviously knew his base
Do you
too.
think
But
he was empathetic?
hell no.
No.
No. That's right. That's what I'm saying. That the most sought after trait in leadership, though, is predictability, because we believe the math is, if somebody's predictable, the math inside is you think you understand them. When you understand them, you think you can trust them. Right? Predictability leads to understanding. Understanding leads to trust. And it makes sense. You can backtest this. Just think about people in your own life. Like if you had a parent or a boyfriend or girlfriend or a roommate, and you didn't know who you were getting on any given day.
Yeah.
Right? That's a very hard person to be around. Somebody where you know how they're going to show up makes you feel safe. Even if it's crazy, it makes you feel safe because you know what to expect.
Right. Okay. Well, let's go around the table. Let's do our own poll.
Yeah.
On predictability. So, Molly, we'll start with you. What is,
Fancy.
on a scale from 1 to 10, how important is predictability for you? And don't have a biased answer because of how he
No.
responded.
Just be honest.
Let's be honest.
TBH. Let's see. On a scale from 1 to 10, the importance of predictability to me as a leader. I mean, it will be high up there, like 8, 9.
8, 9.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say about 7, 8, because even in your own, I think, relationships, if you had a parent that was very unpredictable, that could really screw up some,
Yeah. Does that make somebody a little boring, though?
Well, yeah, that's why I'm like, there's still that little like inch where you want that spontaneity.
90% predictable, 10% unpredictable. There's a mixture.
I still want like a, even in a partner, in a parent, in a boss, you still want someone that's going to, you can't know every step.
Yeah.
No.
I think that would be a little weird, because then why aren't you running the company, or why aren't you the parent, or why aren't you, with someone else?
Right.
That's how you end up in the juggles of somewhere chasing blue frogs. That's an example.
Well, what about it?
Very predictable.
What about in a friendship? Like, do you want that person to be very predictable, or do you think unpredictability is cool?
I think it depends on how predictable they are.
And context matters there, I
It
think.
definitely does.
Some things you want to be very predictable.
We're talking about
some things
leaders.
not. Right.
Friends are leaders, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, whoever you're around rubs off on you. You don't want idiot friends.
I don't want idiot friends.
So in friends, so what would you characterize your friends? Like, how would you say they're predictable, unpredictable, on a scale from 1 to 10? I hate to put you on the spot.
No. I have a couple friends that are very predictable, and then I have one friend we're trying to make more predictable, because she's very up and down, and we don't know what we're getting. But it's just, I
still
think,
love you.
yeah.
She still loves you.
But no, I just, like I said, you want that 70, 80% predictable, 90%. I don't know. Everyone's different, but you still want that, like, you can't tell everything that they're going to do.
Right.
You
think
still like
that's
the
weird.
element of surprise.
Exactly.
Okay. So then how does that relate to business leadership? Like, do you want a business leader to always be predictable? Like, is that
90%, like I always say,
Yeah.
my mixture rate is 90% predictable, 10% unpredictable.
But then how do you grow? Because if somebody's predictable, right? Like, so you have to do something unpredictable in order to grow. Right?
So I guess it would be good to unpack what being predictable means.
Like results oriented, like in that sense, or like behavior.
Meaning how you show up is consistent, right? So you don't come in one day and you're angry, and you come in the next day and you're over the top happy. Like, you're not manic. You're not, it's like Or whatever it is baseline, it's predictable. So you come in every day an asshole. Okay, well, at least that's predictable. Or you come in every day, happy and consistent. It's the I don't know who I'm getting every day is what causes the problems. That's the issue.
Got it. So give me an example of somebody that's not a good leader that
Based on that?
Yeah, based on that.
Somebody's always winging it. You don't know who you're getting every single day. Their decisions are emotional and they're based on how they're feeling in that moment. They're constantly switching their initiatives. They're constantly switching what's important. They're always putting out fires because they don't know how to manage things. So you don't know who you're getting.
Give me like
it's hard to plan around that.
But give me like a real example. Like you don't have to name names, but like any
example of a real person. You want me to call someone out for being unpredictable?
Don't say their name. You said Donald Trump, right? He's very predictable.
Very
right?
predictable, and I think that helped him get elected.
Right. Who do we know? We might know that's unpredictable that we would point out and be like, that's an example of what I'm talking about.
Me. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm so predictable, buddy.
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know that anybody comes to mind directly as like that's a horrible leader because they're unpredictable.
Like was Jordan Belfort? Remember him?
Yes.
So from Wolf of Wall Street, was he predictable or was he unpredictable? And does that make you so like if you're predictable but you have horrible other traits, does that still make you a good leader? Like
no. So the question, the framing was, what is the trait that is most sought after in leaders?
Right.
Not does that make you a good leader?
Of course, yeah, but
right. Because you can be very predictable and be, like, in my opinion, Donald Trump is a good business guy. His policies were solid, but his leadership was horrific. His lack of empathy, his inability to communicate and inspire and unite was horrific. But I think he got elected because he was the first politician that I can remember who stuck to his guns all the way through. He didn't waver. He was highly, highly predictable. Whereas classically, most politicians say what they need to say to get elected, but then are constantly pivoting and changing what they're about. He did not.
Was it insurrection? Was that the nail in the coffin for him with regards to?
And I might have an old school conservative view of what leaders are supposed to do, but in my world, uniting the people is a big one.
100%.
100%. Especially when it comes to the United States of America.
Yeah,
you'd like to see that be reflected in your leaders.
100%.
Key term, united.
Yeah.
United.
So
cool. Any other traits that you've found in leaders that you found were attractive?
Authenticity.
Authenticity.
Yeah, being real.
Being real. Okay.
And
about your faults.
Well,
About
you have to be careful with that one because you can get like I don't even know if it becomes authenticity at that point, but you can get leaders who like dump all their crap on their people. That's not what I'm talking about. But it's being real about the fact that you're not perfect, that not all of your decisions are going to be good. Being real that you have hard days, that not everything is perfect in your life, that you make mistakes, that kind of stuff, I think is really important in leaders because it teaches your people and your culture that that's okay. And it is. It's absolutely essential to grow a healthy culture, I think. We all act like everything's okay all the time or that we're perfect, nothing ever gets done, you don't really grow.
Right.
And it's obviously false.
Right. So this is the thing that that bothers me about leaders. Like so when we talk about like predictability, like there are attractive qualities in people in general. But how do you like extrapolate that or isolate that feature compared to like their actual character? So like like Donald Trump, very good at getting results, right? Things like that. But then his character isn't that great, right? So how do you isolate that? So Hitler was very predictable, like extremely predictable, right? Like he was also extremely charismatic, which you could say is an attractive quality of a leader, right? But he's very unattractive as a person in general, right? Because his character sucks. So what actually makes overall, like what are the few things, let's say there's like 3 characteristics that make a good leader. So you have predictability is one thing, right? I'll tell you, like, for me, I'll tell you, I like David Meltzer. He's great. He's a great leader in my opinion. And I know I'm mentioning him, but one thing that he does is I think leaders should be judged by how they treat the least of us, not the best of us. Because everybody could treat the successful CEO like good. There's no character involved in like praising somebody that's very high status. No character whatsoever. You could treat somebody well. You could like give them praise. You can do all these things. Nobody cares. But how are you treating? I like to judge people about how are they treating people that can't do anything for them. That's one thing. And then how even more important, how do they treat people they don't like? Mm-hmm. So to me, that's like a good leader treats people they don't like well, even people they don't like, right? They can still defend themselves, but also how are you treating the least of us? So somebody comes into the office, can't do anything for us. Maybe it's trying to even sell us something, right? How do we treat those people? That's what I think is a good leader.
You think a good human being? Just a quality human being?
But why do you separate leader and good? Like,
well, I'm framing what a leader is, right? So certainly,
so you can be a leader without being a good person.
Sadly, yes. Right? Like leadership as a quality simply is the effect in which people follow you. Right? So what makes people follow you? Sadly, being a good person isn't necessary for people to follow you. Sadly, having great character isn't a reason why people follow you. So, per se. So you got to understand, like, what is leadership? We got to define leadership. The thing you're saying, I would agree with, though.
Okay.
I think John Maxwell says it in the inverse really well. I really like it. Says, he who calls himself a leader but no one follows is simply taking a walk. Right? Leadership is the trait of which people follow you.
Right.
Right? And you're going somewhere. There's a direction. But that doesn't mean that you have to be a person of great character, sadly, or that you have to be a good person or treat everyone well. Historically, there are lots of leaders who didn't demonstrate those things. But what are the traits that make somebody a leader that people follow? Now, if you're asking what makes the traits of a good leader, right?
Yeah, what makes the traits of a good leader?
I think when I look at it from that, and in our businesses, I would look at it. Do you have a positive impact on the people around you? I grade your leadership by the impact you have on others. Are the people around you better off by being in your presence? Are the people around you growing and developing as a result of being in your presence? To me, that's what a good leader is.
Right.
They make the people around them better. So if you are to the detriment of the people around you, I don't care what kind of personal results you're getting, you're not my guy.
Yeah. I see this a lot, like in MLMs, right? No. There's like one dude making all the money or one girl making all the money, and no one around them is making any money. So to me, that's a lack of leadership, right?
Yeah, that's network marketing in general, but unfortunately, that's also government in general. That's also a lot of big business in general.
Right.
Like a lot of people would say by that definition that Amazon is a network marketing company or an MLM because one dude, and I love Jeff Bezos. I have no issue with what he's done, but a lot of people
think he's a good leader.
A lot of people are hating on him because he's done so well for himself, but there's a lot of people who work for him who aren't. That's that's a whole other discussion, but that's
Jesus. Yeah, he's an anomaly. I don't know how to
an anomaly
to that.
In which way?
He's an anomaly with regards to like you growing such a big company without treating your employees well. Like, so most companies that grow big, you have to have like a good culture, right? Like it's hard to grow without a good culture. Would you guys agree?
I feel like I typically hear the opposite about Amazon, though. Like, they have great culture. They have great benefits. Everyone's just sniveling and whining over one guy that
I don't know.
created
so
the
this
whole
is what
thing
I hear.
from
I may be wrong, but this is what I hear.
I feel like if the situation was reversed, like if anyone else put themselves in Jeff Bezos' shoes and went through like the amount of shit that he went through to bring Amazon to where it is today, they would be pissed off at the world. Like, you go build this thing. You take the time. You put in the money. You put in the hours to build this monster to what it is today. And I don't think that there's a single person in at least America that could say that Amazon hasn't had an impact on their lives.
Right. Okay. So
Yeah, and I mean, I grew up.
He
in
has so much
Seattle,
value. Yeah. So here's what's interesting. Like you hear people that say, "Oh yeah, Jeff Bezos treats his employees not well," right? First of all, he's created how many jobs? Like hundreds of thousands of jobs. Okay, that's the first thing. But then you ask those same people, how many times have you bought from Amazon?
Right.
And they're like, well, every day.
Yeah.
Or I use it every week, right? So why do you think Jeff Bezos is not as appreciated as he should be?
I think he's become wildly successful, and most of his employees, because of the kind of work they're doing, aren't compensated nearly to the degree in which he is. And in the middle of a pandemic in which most Americans were sitting at home collecting a government-funded check, he enriched himself by, I don't know, 55 billion or whatever it was. Pretty large number.
Do you think people are looking at the wrong things? Like,
of course they are.
They just
Bono from U2 once said a very long time ago, and I loved it. And I hope this doesn't change. But he goes, "I love America." He was talking about he's just the traits that make America America. And I can't remember who was interviewing him, but the person that interviewed him. But what do you like about America? He goes, "Well, in the UK, in my country," I think specifically he was talking about Ireland, but because we look at the guy on the hill in the castle, and we go, "Fuck you."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
In America, you look at the guy in the castle on the hill and you go, "I can be you one day."
Like that.
And it was like just a different phrase. And like, I'm obviously paraphrasing what he said. He said it more eloquently than that, but it was a beautiful ideology that I feel like we're losing here, where suddenly we're demonizing people's success. Now, on the flip side of that, I do think successful people have a responsibility to give back and help others, but you can't help somebody who isn't willing to help themselves. And for a lot of these guys, I get where they're coming from, because they're like, nobody handed them success. Jeff Bezos didn't come from success. His family was middle class. I remember when he was selling frickin' textbooks out of his garage. I lived in Seattle at that time. And so like it wasn't like he got handed success. He built something and he sacrificed and he worked hard to build that, and no doubt with a lot of other people to help him. But it wasn't like he's some like kingly or royalty that was just passed down title, and that's why he is the way he is. He worked for it. And that's the case for statistically 84% of millionaires in America. They're self-made and they're first generation. So to suddenly hate on that because it's not you does not, that if you just do the math on that, that isn't going to create a better world. But that, on the flip side of that, that doesn't mean that successful people don't have a responsibility to help, and they do. Right. So you got Bezos and you've got Musk, or two of the wealthiest men in the world right now, who are trying to make us a multi-planetary species.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
That seems pretty useful too, and they have the means to do it without having to depend on the government, because they built massive fortunes somewhere else. History may very well shine very brightly on them if they find a way to make us multi-planetary, and we end up needing to be. So anyway,
I always wondered, like, how do you hate on somebody that's potentially going to save your life? Like,
it's envy, right? And especially when you're struggling and they're not, and it looks like, you look at it like, well, he's got 100 billion. Why can't he just give more money to everyone else?
Right.
And he can.
So do you think it's just the media that treats like some of these guys like, they show the worst, like the worst perspective with regards to?
I do think that corporate America has to get away from profit as the thing we worship more than anything else.
That's true.
I think there needs to be more equality in pay, and I'm hoping that's
equality in pay, like in terms of
spreading wealth around more,
more
than it is currently. And I get why it isn't that way, but we need to evolve. We need to grow. So you give back more, and I do think I do think that it's important that we find a way to do that, because if the wealth gap gets too big, historically that becomes a big problem.
Right. Okay. So why don't we ask this question then? Let's go around. So what would make you not attracted to following someone? What would be a trait or something someone has done that would make you go, oh, that's not a person that I would like to follow? So we'll start with Molly, and then we'll go this way. You'll answer too. Speaking of Mike.
I'm thinking outside of the mic. Hold on. So a trait that
would cause you not to follow someone, not to see them as a leader.
Come back to me,
Okay.
please. Thank you.
Dre?
I'm like, I can't think.
If it was someone like, if we're thinking of Jeff Bezos, years ago before he started Amazon
Right.
as what it is today, and he's like, follow me, work for me. It's, I think, being able to see the vision of where they're going. And I think they're like grit to continue to get to that. I think that's a person that I would follow, even if they don't have anything to say like, hey, here's my $1 billion company. As long as they have that picture, that long-term vision,
Right.
I think that's something that I would put on my checklist as someone that I would follow.
So you could, let's say somebody can't give you the salary that you want or whatever the case may be, and they're new, but they have like a strong vision. You would be able to follow that person as long as they have a strong vision and they're like, hey.
I mean, it can't be like a bum off the road telling me that he's going to go build a castle.
Yeah.
But I think it's definitely a trait that I would definitely need to have as a priority.
Got it. Okay.
So the inverse, lack of vision, would be a reason not to follow.
But you said
Yes.
you said grit. What about grit is attractive in a leader?
I mean, that word can encompass a lot of things,
Right.
be able to go through the ups and the downs, but still see that vision, still be able to work hard when, they're down in the dumps.
Right. Work your ass off even though like everything is against you. Pretty much.
100%.
Yeah. Okay. Kat.
So when you were initially bringing up the topic, and even before you had mentioned some of the specific categories that you had put on your poll, empathy was one of the things that initially came to mind. But in thinking through that too, like, I think that empathy is important. I think that being able to be nice to people and respect people is important. I think consistency is important. But in a lot of those things too, I think our society nowadays is like so wrapped around what feels good and like what I'm going to like per se. And that's not something in particular that I'm looking for. I want someone that even if it's hard, if it's a hard conversation, if I'm going to get frustrated by it, is going to push me to be better. So someone who is very direct and someone that has standards. And someone who is like developing themselves and has vision as well. And again, is generally like helping make all of those around them to be a better person. So I feel like it's easier to say like what I am looking for than in particular what I'm not. But some major turnoffs would be poor decision making, someone who's making decisions that are based on emotions and is inconsistent in how they show up daily.
So like give me an example of somebody that made a decision on emotion and like besides Donald Trump and the insurrection.
I mean, I don't have like a particular person in mind, but for example, like, oh, my car broke down today. So I'm just going to be in a pissed off attitude whenever I get into work, or maybe I'm not even going to show up to work. I'm just going to put it all off on other people, or like, hey, my, girlfriend broke up with me, and like, obviously I don't want to be completely
like
unempathetic and understanding that like shit happens and there's going to be, a response that you have to it, but you have a team. They're depending on you to show up. And if you're like wildly across the board with who you are, or, making decisions just based on how you're feeling, that's not going to lead to, I feel like, success in the long run, or having people that respect you back.
Right.
So the 90% of unpredictability.
I think like for the most part, if you go through some type of crisis, usually people will give you slack if you haven't had multiple crises. Like if you're like, oh, my mother died, right? I mean, you have to be sensitive to that, right? You have to be empathetic towards that. But if you've been late for the last year, every meeting, if you've had a puppy die every other month, right? If something happened in your family every other month, then, people might see that it's just reality, right? If something happens, like people, like, I think people say, oh, I got fired because this, and they're so insensitive. Well, what's the context behind that? Because were you unpredictable and unreliable this whole time, and then something happened, they're like, oh, here's another thing, right? Like, yeah. So I hear what you're saying.
I use a 3 strikes you're out policy on that one. The first time something happens and it's an accident.
Yeah.
The first time you're late, it's an accident, whatever. Second time it happens, it's a coincidence. Third time it happens, it's a behavioral pattern.
Yeah.
Once we get
Yeah,
to
it's a
behavioral
lifestyle.
pattern, your excuses no longer matter to me.
I guess that's the like part of what I'm trying to say too. If something that I would not respect or want
Yeah.
or follow in a leader is excuses.
100%. Yeah, complaining, excuses. I can't get this done because of that, or 100%.
Lack of awareness.
Blaming someone else.
Yeah, it's funny because like we used to do these events at a company called Vector Marketing, and we used to have an event. I was a manager, and every event
Did you sell Cutco?
I did.
Vector is like the knife slinging company,
Yeah,
right?
so, yeah.
Door to
I did
door.
that for 4 years. It was an awesome company, great company. I love it. Actually, there's a lot of similarities because like between what you guys do and then and the booths at the OC Fair, a lot of similarities. But every event we have, we're like, okay, there's going to be 5 grandmas that die this week. We just knew we're going to get called. There's going to be 5 grandmas, family members that pass away this week because every single event was like, okay, we're going to plan for this many. Like
You're saying X amount of people are supposed to show up and X amount don't show up, and their excuse has to do with somebody in their family passed away.
X amount, no matter what, is something happened in their family. Like no matter what, there would be like at least 5-6 people that we would be like, hey, you want to come to the event? They say I can't come to the event because this happened or this my family member this, and we knew it every time. So like we would just call it out every time. It was hilarious. But so for me, a negative trait in a leader would be somebody that pedestalizes externalities.
English,
Explain.
please.
In other words,
Okay, so I want to think of this in terms of business, but okay, let's say you have people that pedestalize material things and making money and profits, right? That's like their top thing. So you said that earlier, right?
Go ahead. Can you just unpack what you mean by pedestalize?
Like make it more important than it needs to be.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
There we go.
Way more important than it needs to be. Like way more important. So and it's more important than everything else. I mean, it's on a pedestal. Like it's more important than everything else, and nothing else matters almost in some cases.
like
so,
what?
Yeah. So like, an externality could be like, I want to make a ton of money, right? If you pedestalize that, it's good to want to make a lot of money, and I think people should want to make a lot of money. But when that's like the only thing that matters, then you're willing to cheat, steal. You're willing to do everything that doesn't portray a good leader. If you pedestalize, if you put on a pedestal being nice to people, then you'll forego making more money to like do the right thing by that person, right? Because you put on a pedestal being nice to people.
I think I get what you're saying.
Yeah, does that make sense? Am I making sense at all?
Values they prioritize.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna let you guys speak for the next 2 minutes while I fix this camera. Cool.
Sounds good.
Back to you, Molly.
The trait that I wouldn't follow, I guess, the one that really stuck out with me was the lack of self-awareness. Because to me, I feel like as a person myself who is continuing to work on myself and having the awareness piece, if I'm trying to look up to someone, they have to have at least that trait, right? Like knowing what they want, what they don't want, how to live their life the way that they, foresee they need to be. So I think lack of awareness is a big trick that I would not like to follow, I guess, if we're going that route. Or the 90% of unpredictability that came back to. I'm like, and there it is. So back to you.
What about in relationships? What is attractive in a leader? In like
Me.
significant other?
I think it's the same thing.
Yeah,
for
I was
me.
just going to say the exact same things.
Yeah.
Independence.
No excuses. Show up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hold me accountable. Let's grow together. Let's be better.
I can think of multiple people in my social circle that have made really bad decisions with regards to significant others. I can think of, okay, this is a good example of pedestalizing stuff. I have a friend, please don't hate me that I called you out.
We still love you. We still love you. Whoever you are, or they.
But so I have a friend that married a very, very pretty girl. Like extremely,
Out of his league, would you say?
No, actually,
Okay.
no. I think he's out of her league, to be honest. Because he's just as good looking. He's very successful. Married a girl, very attractive. She turned out to be like a horrible person. Like she married him. She started cheating on him. She was seeing other dudes, and he was like, "Hey, you need to stop seeing other dudes because this is not good." And she's like, "No, I just don't want to do that." Like literally, they're married, and she's like, "I don't want to stop seeing other guys." And then like, I don't know. I think we all think like she married him because of money. I think that was the case. But then on the other end, you have female women that choose the wrong guy, right? Because of externalities, right? They pedestalize, the wrong things, right? Like it could be money, popularity, whatever the case may be.
You keep using this word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
What?
Pedestalize. Put a big pedestal there. Pedestal.
I think it does mean what I guarantee it means what I think.
Sabs, what does it mean?
What does it mean then?
He's
I don't know if you have a good.
It's the overuse of the word.
Find a new word.
Okay.
I'm just giving you a hard
Worship.
time. It's great. I get it. Overvalue.
Overly emphasize, overly value, overly whatever.
Yep. We always do what we value most.
Right. So, what are your thoughts on that? So, let's start with Sebastian.
What's the question?
So, what do you think people overly value in relationships that they shouldn't?
Just being in the relationship.
I think it very much depends on the person. What they value is really predicated upon very often what they didn't have growing up, or where they see the lack. So we always do what we value most. So if somebody's choosing a particular value system or they're pursuing particular things, it's because they perceive that's where they're going to get their needs met.
Right.
So I'm not terribly judgmental of somebody who has a different set of values than mine that maybe leads to a different result in their life. I'm more trying to understand what is it they're seeking from that what need is that meeting? Right. So you're mentioning your friend who married the very hot woman that seems to have some severe character traits that don't line up in other areas.
Right.
If he's cool with that because he's getting what he needs from the relationship, then who am I to judge?
Oh yeah, if he's cool with it.
Like he's like, hey, I wanted a hot wife because to me that tells me I'm a success.
Yeah.
In my worldview, having a hot wife doesn't matter whether it's the relationship is a complete mess or not.
Right.
I feel like a success because I married a hot girl. Well, okay. I'm not going to judge that. It's not my place, not what I would want. I think most people looking at it probably wouldn't want that, but I'm more trying to understand.
If he's cool with it, then it's a different story.
Yeah.
But like, do you think we overemphasize beauty and money?
Of course.
We over.
Yeah, in general, because it's a form of status and social relationship, social comparison.
Right. Cool.
Yeah. As you get older, I think you value those things differently. You reframe them.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't.
They're important, but do they supersede all the other things?
Lasting relationships, going back to the question around leadership, whether it's business or personal, lasting relationships really come down to three things: shared value system, shared vision, shared conflict resolution.
Right.
So if you have a shared value system with your community and group or with the relationship you're in, you're probably going to be in really good shape. If you have shared vision, you're probably going to be in really good shape. If you have a shared conflict resolution style, you're probably going to be in good shape. The three of those are the power combo. So typically when you see groups come together in any kind of value system, those things are present. If they are not present, the relationship is probably doomed to fail.
Got it. Okay. So, Kat, what do you think people overvalue in other people?
I feel like we could talk about relationships for hours. But I I think that in particular, like everyone's kind of ingrained with like, this is the way that relationships are supposed to look like, right? Like you kind of have this blueprint of like, oh, well, you're supposed to go to school first and then, you know, get married and then buy a house and then have a dog and then have a kid, you know? So we have kind of these unrealistic expectations that things are supposed to be a certain way. And especially as we're young, like you don't really know who you are yet or what you're looking for in a partner. And it can be, you know, easy to get committed to the wrong things. Right. And then have backlash happen whenever you change your mind. Right. So, you know, kind of back to Sebastian's point too, shared vision, shared values, and shared conflict resolution. Like if you have that initially, like you're going to be able to make it through those things. But if you don't, like the relationship is probably inevitably going to fail.
Gotcha. Drea?
I think Kat hit the nail on the head on that one. Because I think that we are so, I wouldn't say, there's a group of people, and I mean, I'm guilty of it too, where you think of like where I should be right now, you know, and then you start to compare yourself. And I think that's what people, what was the word?
Pedestalize.
But I think that is probably the biggest area where everyone kind of gets screwed, as you start to think of like where I should be, where you're comparing your friends of where they're at in their relationship. And just like Kat said, like you should, you know, comparison. You should date for this long and then get engaged immediately and then get married and have this beautiful wedding and, you know, have 2 kids and a dog and make sure it's a boy and a girl because that's where it should be. So I think that's where we kind of get screwed.
When
comparison I feel like is enemy of progress.
Yes.
It could depend too, like based on what you grew up in, like small town Texas, for example, class of 10 people that I graduated with, they're all married, like multiple kids, like, and I had very high expectations coming out of school. Like, okay, I'm going to be married by like 19, 20, kids by 21. Like, thank God those things didn't play out, especially with those particular people at that time. But it just makes me think back of like, shoot, if I had been so hard-headed and thinking that things had to be a certain way and not adapting to change, like my life would be wildly different than it is today.
Yeah. And I've seen firsthand relationships where the girl or the guy is just like, you know, we should be married right now. Like we should be engaged. Somehow they get into some kind of ultimatum. Someone proposes, they get married. Not happy because then they realize that maybe they needed a little more time to learn about each other.
Yeah, that's a good way to get married.
Right. Or even, you know, then a kid shows up and now they're like, well, I don't know if this really made the relationship better. And it's all from that beginning piece.
From a guy's perspective, do you think like sometimes men get pushed into marriage and they regret it often? I'm married, by the way.
Do you regret it?
I don't know. I don't regret it.
You love your wife.
I love my wife.
Baby girl.
I love my wife and baby girl. 100%.
I mean, I think, sure. Yeah, I think depending on the culture you live in and how things are prioritized, certainly you can feel if the global belief system of your culture says you got to be married by a certain time, or if you're not a success, you're not on track, you can feel compelled to get married. But I think,
or religion.
To be honest, my perspective, and maybe I'm wrong, my perspective is that there's a lot more guilt or shame or pressure put on women to get married by a particular date. And if they're not, there's something wrong with them than men.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like cool to be the bachelor, you know?
For men.
Yeah.
For men.
Yeah.
Not so much for
double
women.
Standard.
Double standard.
That could be a whole conversation.
Ooh,
there's lots of double standards. We should talk about double standards.
Double standards.
Next week.
That'll make we totally talk about double standards. We'll piss everyone off.
Oh, Jesus.
Molly, what about you?
I've experienced it. Okay.
Tell me the question again.
What do you think people overvalue in relationships in general? It could be friendships. It could be significant other.
Some people overvalue. Maybe their ideal self.
Pedestalize is the right word, but
pedestalize.
But
what they're talking about, right? Like who they expect themselves to be, or where they expect themselves to be.
Yeah.
Hey Google, what's the definition of pedestalize?
Is it even a word?
You can't speak to it.
She's shy. She doesn't want to be on the show.
It's like, I don't want to piss you
Really
guys
shy.
off. I don't want to cause an argument.
What does it say?
Pedestalize is not a word. Pedestal, a support or foot of late classic neoclassical column. Tourism in the island of economic. Be careful not to celebrities on high pedestal.
Why did your accent
Wait a second.
change from start to end?
It was like an English
Pedestal.
woman.
Hey, hey, hey. Hold on a
Pedestaling, pedestaling, pedestalize. That doesn't show up even in the.
Okay.
You know what? Put it in the
Urban
dictionary.
Meaning, definition. Pedestalized definition. I have a good vocabulary, by the way. So, oh, well, it says vote Urban Dictionary. There you go.
There it is.
Hold on.
A lot of TikTok. I think is what's going on there.
A lot of capping happening.
A lot of capping. Definition of pedestalize. The word search engine to solve. To place something on a pedestal, to hold something in a very high esteem, especially to an exaggerated degree.
Overemphasized.
Pedestal, overemphasized, to overvalue. Yeah.
You're being a little pretentious here. I'm just gonna pull out all the words I know now. I'm just kidding.
On the Urban Dictionary.
All right, so
What does capping mean?
I don't know. He explained it last week. It's like sugar coating.
Like
TikTok.
not being authentic.
not being authentic, you're capping.
Got it.
Yeah, that's a TikTok phrase. It's used a lot. I learned it from TikTok.
You're learning a lot of your words in TikTok.
I'm way too involved in TikTok.
Pedestalized on TikTok.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So let's wrap this up. In like what we've come to the conclusion of is like leadership. You don't have to be the greatest person to be a leader, but there's certain attractive qualities in leadership. Predictability is one. Not making excuses. Grit is a very attractive quality in a leader.
Long-term vision.
Long-term vision. And if you guys want to add,
Authenticity.
Which
You
is
said
crazy because you could describe
self-awareness.
those things about bad leaders. So some people mistake, and just kind of wrapping this up, the quality of leadership isn't necessarily the same quality of good and bad. You can have somebody who is a great leader who is a quote unquote bad person. I don't usually frame things that way, but just in the understanding we're saying, right? So it's like you described grit, vision, and predictability. And I agree on all three of those things.
Hitler was all of those.
And Hitler was all three of those
Yeah.
things,
was.
right? So you could be a great leader and a bad
that's like-
person, which sucks.
So
And
you could
that's
be-
the difference. That's like, and it takes a very discerning, critical thinking kind of individual to be able to separate those two things. One could be, you could be a great leader and a
Yeah.
shitty person. Ideally, and you could be a great person
Right.
and a shitty leader,
Right.
right? Which is fascinating. That's a whole other discussion we could crack into. But I think predictability, grit, and vision are really important, and I think empathy is really important as well. In our leaders, for sure. The best
Interesting.
leaders do the will of the people.
The will of the people. Is there a point where you're doing too much of the will of the people though? Where they're like everybody has their opinion and you're always changing direction because
Well,
of people's opinion.
It's a quote from the Tao Te Ching. The best leaders do the will of the people. The best leaders are invisible because they do the will of the people, which doesn't mean that they do what everyone else thinks they should do. It means as a leader, they're invisible and their influence is in such a way that people believe it was their idea all along,
Yeah.
which is a different
Got it.
kind of leadership style.
All right. All right. So if you're listening to this, make sure to like and subscribe. This is the goal. We want
And
to
share.
It helps with our algorithm
Share,
and
comment.
and
Tell
comment.
us what you like.
Save it.
Absolutely. Save it, share it, like it, comment, do whatever you can to spread the word about this podcast because we're sharing really valuable insights and advice. So,
But whatever you do, don't over pedestalize.
Anything.
and don't be pretentious either.